I want to get you started on this global situation about the I guess greenhouse gases and all kinds of different things.
Yeah, climate change. I think it's important to know, John, that climate change is real. The climate changes every single day. So when people on the political and cultural left talk about the dangers of climate change, we need to remind them that, yes, there is climate change, but it happens naturally. It doesn't happen because of man-made behavior, which has been something they've been telling us for about the last 50 years. So what I'm going to do is share a pretty good amount of information that explains that. First of all, every summer, not just this last summer, but every single summer, John, we are always told that it's the hottest on record. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, every single summer, they're telling us it's the hottest on record. There's nothing we can do about it. Well, here's the deal, okay? As you said, Antarctica has gotten colder. Between 1999 and 2018, temperatures actually cooled off by 1.8 Celsius degrees. So global temperatures have cooled, not warmed, as those on the left want us to believe. In fact, this is even more amazing. Antarctica has cooled and more ice has grown there in spite of increased carbon emissions. That's important because what the left tries to tell us is that more carbon emissions are causing warmer weather. Well, this is showing that, more carbon emissions are not causing warmer weather. They're causing colder weather. In fact, here's where the left gets it wrong. They think carbon emissions cause the weather to get warmer, and it's not true. Carbon emissions do not cause the weather to become warmer. It's the opposite. Warmer weather actually releases more carbon emissions into the atmosphere. So they've got that backwards. So that's an important thing an important distinction. The second thing is there's an article in the Blaze media from September 1st. Okay, so that's about 8 days ago. And it says, Al Gore wrong again. Okay, Al Gore wrong again. Study delivers good news for Arctic ice trends, bad news for the climate hucksters. Okay, hucksters are the people who are peddling the man-made climate change issue, when in fact it's not man-made. It's made naturally by the sun. It's the solar cycles of the sun that are increasing and decreasing temperatures and global climate change. We'll get into that a little more, but for now, I wanted to address this article. Blaze Media, Al Gore wrong again. Study delivers good news for Arctic ice trends, bad news for climate hucksters. In the article, John, it says that in 2007, Al Gore, he received a Nobel Prize for speaking out against man-made climate change, right? Well, what ended up happening in that speech in 2007, he predicted that the polar ice caps will fall off like a cliff. They'll just fall off like ice falling off a cliff. And he said that all the studies show that all the ice will be gone in 22 years. Well, here we are. The ice isn't gone from the polar ice caps. In fact, we're seeing increased ice in Antarctica, okay, and the North Pole has not fallen off. Ice has not fallen off like a cliff, like he claimed.
Well,
one thing
I can get, I remember when I was a kid, 12, 14 years old, and you probably remember this too, they told us that we were going to run out of natural gas in the next 5 to 6 years.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember them talking about that? The gas companies were jacking up the price of natural gas, and the government was telling us that we were going to run out of natural gas, and that's kind of when all this started with the Green New Deal type of things. But and then we found out that we're standing on more natural gas here in Pennsylvania than we could ever use in 100 years.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. In fact, the United States is called the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We have more natural gas under the ground than Saudi Arabia does oil. That's how incredible it is. And so all these claims have been proven false. 2 years after Gore made his claim in 2009, he said there was a 75% chance, this is at the Copenhagen Climate Conference, there was a 75% chance the entire North Pole and their ice caps, would be completely ice-free in the next 5 to 7 years. That was in 2009. Well, guess what? 2009, he said within 5 to 7 years, that's 2016, here we are. The ice caps in the North Pole have not dried up and evaporated. They're still there. So all these crazy, we'll call them claims, are proving to be false. And here's the interesting thing, John. Do you know that Al Gore, with all of his scaremongering and his fear-mongering, all of which have been proven false, all of his claims, he was getting $200,000 per speaking engagement. Isn't that something?
It is. It is.
Yeah. So he's making money, scaring people, and there's an agenda behind it all. What do you think the agenda is?
Well, the agenda is for the agenda is for us to go without electricity. That's what I think it is. I mean, that's where we're at. Just think about it. They're trying to figure out how we can. We're never going to be able to, with solar and wind, we're never going to be able to get to the point where we're going to be able to take care of electric needs of just your locality. So how are we going to do that nationwide? So it almost like they're trying to keep people from being able to use their electrical products. I mean, that's my thing.
No, you're absolutely right. This is an attempt to move us away from a free enterprise capitalism system to a more monopoly capitalism system where government has a monopolistic control over everything. That's what's happened with healthcare, thanks to Obama and his ACA law, also known as Obamacare. As a result of Obamacare, the ACA law, healthcare costs have doubled and deductibles have tripled. So it didn't improve healthcare. It made things worse. It's made it harder for people to get healthcare coverage. So that's a monopolistic kind of capitalism, not a free enterprise capitalism. And so if they can scare people, John, into believing that free enterprise capitalism is bad, it's killing people because of climate change, then they'll embrace this monopoly capitalism, just like we have with our healthcare system. And I think that's what's behind all of this. Plus, there's another angle. There's the population bomb. They want to make the case that there's too many people on the earth using too much power, using too much energy. And so that's another problem. In November of 2017, there was an article on NBCnews.com. It was an opinion piece, and it said, "Science proves kids are bad for the earth." Is that insane or what?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it is insanity.
Yeah, and so the objective is to push us off of free enterprise capitalism using energy that comes from the earth, like natural gas, which is very clean and virtually no carbon footprint whatsoever. The same thing with nuclear power. They don't want us using those things. They want us to use solar and wind, which produce barely any energy. And now we're finding out that solar panels, when using solar energy, it produces three times more carbon, releases three times more carbon into the environment than natural gas. Isn't that something?
One more time. Let me roll that around a second. Tell me that.
Yeah, there's a 2024 report just came out last year from the Environmental Progress that found the carbon footprint, the carbon emissions released into our atmosphere by solar panels are three times greater than that of natural gas.
Okay. So
we were told we needed to move to solar and wind to reduce our carbon footprint, right?
Yeah. Well,
to reduce, right?
Actually, I with the amount of cement, the amount of steel, the amount of oil it takes just to build these things, you're never going to get it back. It's never going to outweigh the benefit of them.
Right. So building these solar panels and putting them in place releases three times more carbon into our atmosphere than natural gas, meaning it's useless to have solar and wind because of what you just said. You have to manufacture the solar panels or the wind turbines. You have to use all the steel and all the energy. You have to buy up an enormous amount of land. You take farmland away from farmers. You take land away from developers and from people who wanting to build homes and so on. So it does not help the environment. It's the opposite. And more carbon is being released. And so this is from a 2024 report from the Environmental Progress. And so and here's another problem. China is not releasing their data on their solar panel industry. Most of the solar panels used to collect solar energy are built in China, and they're not telling us how much carbon is released into the atmosphere when they make these solar panels. And as a result, we aren't getting good data. So when the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, or the International Energy Agency, IEA, when they release their findings on carbon emissions, they're not even giving us accurate data because China's not playing ball and telling us how much carbon the development of these solar panels is causing.
Well, I do know the Chinese are buying most of the coal in the world right now, all the good coal out there. So
yes.
The other thing is that they've came over here and bought the power plants that the coal power plants that we were supposed to put out of service. They bought the parts to them, and now they're over there generating power with coal. Actually, they dumped the coal in the sea. I don't know. A lot of people don't know this probably, but they dumped the coal in the sea to store it, and in different parts. And then they dredge it back up. So you start thinking about it. I'm not saying that we don't have to have clean energy. That isn't what I'm about. We have to have clean energy. We have to have clean water. We have to be able to fuel everything. But when you got somebody over, they're not even trying.
Right.
And they're burning things over there. I mean, they're burning everything from tires to anything they can get their hands on to make power.
Yeah, exactly. And then they are releasing carbon into our atmosphere. And the United States has the lowest carbon emissions we've had in decades, and their carbon emissions are through the roof. And so, yeah, it's completely opposite of what we've been told. And let me just say this. The evidence for solar activity causing climate change, not man-made activity, is overwhelming. There's a guy from De Anza College. His name is Ridha Hamidi, PhD. Okay? And this man said, this is a scientist who works on these issues. He said, and I quote, "More energy from sunlight strikes the earth in 1 hour than all of the energy currently consumed on the planet in 1 year. More energy is coming from the sun in 1 hour than all the energy human beings consume in 1 year. So what's that tell you? Sunlight and the radiation from the sun, okay, is causing, the temperature change is coming from the sun, not from human beings. Because in 1 hour, more energy comes from sunlight than in all the energy we consume as humans in 1 year. In fact, there's a guy named, I think his name is John Casey. He wrote a book called Dark Winter, and he's a scientist who worked for NASA. He worked on the space shuttle, and he said there's a cycle every 30 to 35 years where the Earth moves a little bit farther away from the sun, and then every 30 to 35 years it moves a little bit closer to the sun, and it causes a slight increase or decrease in temperature. You're talking 1 to 2 degrees, not much more. And that's all it is. And it's caused by solar activity and the Earth in relation to the sun. And it's not caused by human beings. And the evidence is overwhelming. But if you have an agenda that you want to destroy free enterprise capitalism, and you want a monopoly capitalism where the government controls everything and controls energy and tells you how much energy you can use, you have to create and manufacture a crisis. And that's what's going on. Let me read this again from the same gentleman with a PhD, Rita Hamidi. He said the amount of solar energy reaching the surface of the planet is so vast that in 1 year, it's about twice as much as will ever be obtained from all of the Earth's non-renewable resources of coal, oil, natural gas, and mined uranium combined. Wow. So solar energy is so vast that in 1 year, the energy coming from the sun in just 1 year is twice as much as all of the energy sources we're using, coal, oil, natural gas, and mined uranium. That's insane, John.
Well, that's because you're taking the whole planet into all this.
Yes, that's true.
The sun. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. But what it proves is the climate is not increasing or decreasing 1 or 2 degrees because of human behavior. It's solar behavior. It's the natural process of solar energy that every so often, every 30 or 35 years, like this John Casey, who's a scientist and worked on the space shuttle, said there's a process every 30 to 35 years, the weather and the temperature increases by 1 or 2 degrees or decreases by 1 or 2 degrees. It's a natural process, has everything to do with solar energy. Let me give you this. How much more time do I have, John?
About 10 minutes. Well, about 7 minutes.
Okay, good. Have you ever heard of the Club of Rome?
No.
Okay, they're like a think tank, nonprofit organization in Europe.
Okay, I was thinking about something else. Go ahead.
No problem. They were founded in 1968. In 1972, they published a report called The Limits of Growth. And they used computer models. So this is not accurate data. It's a model. It's a hypothesis. And a lot of the scare tactics are coming from models, computer models, not actual data taken from the Earth. And so, you can make a computer model say what you want it to say. That doesn't mean it's accurate. And so looking at their computer models back in 1972, they warned, once again, that unchecked population and industrial growth were going to cause massive climate change. You see how they always make it about human beings, not solar activity, which is what the science shows us. It's solar activity. Okay, so in 1991, that same Club of Rome, they issued a book called The First Global Revolution. I want you to pay attention to this next statement by the Club of Rome in 1991 in their book, The First Global Revolution. Listen to this, and I'm quoting them. Here it is. In searching for a common enemy against whom we can reunite, we came up with the idea with the idea. If you come up with an idea, John, you're making up an idea. Okay. They came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by human intervention in natural processes, and it is only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. And here's the final statement. According to them, the real enemy then is humanity itself.
Well, yes. I mean, that's obvious. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's obvious. Yeah. I mean, we're our biggest enemy, the society, the people that live on the earth. We're the ones that use the energy. We're the ones that want more. We want to, I mean, how many people do you know that when you was a kid, just think about it, the house was dark at 10 o'clock and it's late. Well, you might have stayed up and watched the 11 o'clock news, but anything after 11 o'clock, you were working second shift or coming home. I mean, the houses were dark. Street lights actually were turned out at one time at different times. I mean, I don't know. It's a safety thing now, but they turned street lights out at different times. We went from gas street lights to electric street lights. I mean, you could burn you could have the same amount of light out of a gas with a gas street light for about a third the cost as the electric one. We need to start. We need to start thinking about these things.
Natural gas alone, John, is so much cleaner, and we have plenty of it. As we said, the USA is the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We have more natural gas under our feet, than Saudi Arabia does oil.
Well, they're not sure about the oil here in Pennsylvania, but for some reason they're not sure about that. But we still have an abundance of oil here in Pennsylvania. I'm not saying that we're the same as the Arab countries, but there's a big pool of oil we're standing on also. So, but anyways, we'll get back to that another day. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting in this quote in their book that the Club of Rome said we came up with the idea that pollution and the threat of global warming and all these other things were a problem. Well, if you come up with the idea, you're not looking at data, you're not looking at evidence, you just created it out of thin air. You created a crisis that doesn't really exist. Now, you're right, we want clean water, we want clean energy, that's fine, but natural gas gives us clean energy. Nuclear power plants give us clean energy. If you're concerned about clean energy, there's better ways to do it than solar and wind, which produce very little energy. They take up an enormous amount of land. And now we're finding out that solar panels and everything that goes into making these solar panels work is releasing 3 times more carbon into the atmosphere than we were once told. And the fact that I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Well, I was going to tell you, when I went to school, I studied that for a while. Anyways, there was a gentleman, and what he was doing was he was actually creating steam of course, it was hydro. So what they would do is that they would run these lines instead of running electric absorbed to make electric. They would run hydro, and he was making steam with solar panels, and he was able to do it pretty efficiently. And then it all just seemed to go away. I mean, that was back in the early '80s. So, and I do know that you can boil water with the sun real easily if cost effective, and that's the way solar works the best. I will tell you.
Yeah, there are legitimate uses of solar, but for energy en masse, it doesn't produce anywhere near the energy we need. And again, it's releasing 3 times more carbon into the atmosphere, and it takes up an enormous amount of land being taken away from farmers and developers and so on. But I find it interesting that they're telling us that they came up with the idea that global warming and pollution were killing the world, and that the real enemy is humanity itself. No, the real enemy is not humanity itself. The real enemy is a lack of free enterprise. When you see countries, China is a perfect example, burning up a lot of coal, and they're releasing an enormous amount of carbon into our atmosphere, the enemy isn't humanity. The enemy is the system of government that communist China has. A free enterprise capitalist system will allow for the money and revenue and capital to be used to create clean energy like natural gas and nuclear. If you have a monopoly capitalistic system like China, then you do what the government says regardless of how badly they're polluting the environment. So what really comes down to is we need more free enterprise capitalism, not less.
Well, anytime you can fund anything with private money or independent money of the government, you're way further ahead because, and more likely, it's going to end up making money. Howard Hughes proved that over time and time again. I mean, let's say, let's think about that. Let's think about it for just a minute. I mean, they did that, and anytime we have anytime the government gets involved, then you end up with layers of bureaucracy and nothing gets accomplished.
Which explains why we have such a huge debt in our country. We have about a minute left, I think. Okay, let me leave you on this. Blaise Pascal, French, I believe is a French mathematician. He has a great quote. Here's what he says, and this is the quote. People almost invariably arrive at their beliefs not on the basis of proof, but on the basis of what they find attractive. End quote.
Well, Chris, it was great having you. Go ahead, finish up.
No, that's all.
Okay, it was great having you. I know I'm going to have you on again. I appreciate you. We had like a show, a couple different things going on here today, and hopefully I didn't confuse people too much. But I really wanted to get you on about this, and I know we'll get back to it again. So, okay, thanks for calling in, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.